Okay, so, okay. Floor is now yours.
Great, thanks, Bill. And thanks, David, and particularly thanks for all the leadership you've been providing here in the city of Chesapeake. I really appreciate the chance to be with y'all this morning to talk a little bit about site-driven economic development. I had subtitled it, "It's hard to sell nothing." I used to call this no products, no prospects. But one of my other colleagues in the site selection industry went trademark that. He gets very upset when I use it. Don't say royalty check. So, but really, you know, David went through my bio. What I do when I'm not in Richmond, working on a lot of economic development activities here in the Commonwealth, is I'm hired by private companies to help them find ideal sites for industrial office locations all across the country. So in the last 2 weeks, I've been from Richmond to Traverse City, Michigan, to Bozeman, Montana, to Wilmington, North Carolina, to Albany, New York, to Columbus, Ohio. That's just the past 2 weeks, looking at sites, talking to folks about where to locate new factories and facilities across the country. So I say that to give you a little bit of context that this is just not a Virginia perspective on what's going on in the marketplace in order to attract economic development projects, but really to give you a national perspective. I thought I first, though, would start off with talking a little bit about you need to understand what's going on in Virginia, some drivers and some cold hard facts, which are very hard as a Virginian for me to say, because this is not the Virginia I grew up in, but it's some cold hard facts that really face the state. And the first one is, this is a chart that's a couple of years old because UVA hasn't updated the data recently. But it goes all the way back to the 90s, and actually if you took the horizon back to the 20s, this would be the case. And that is that Virginia, really since the 1920s, has been growing, and that has reversed course within the past few years. We're losing people as a state, folks. Virginia's shrinking. Put it even more acutely, this is the Virginia Economic Development Partnership just put this out. They looked at it from a regional basis, and this is total population change. Now, we are lucky that the natural change of population, which means births versus deaths in Virginia, we're still net positive. In the last year, we've gained 10,000 people. But what's happening, the net migration, is we're losing a lot of people all across the state. Look at Hampton Roads. You lost 2,100 people. Northern Virginia's down 30,000 people in last year. 30,000 people in Northern Virginia. And interestingly, if you look at net migration, the areas of the state that have always been having or have recently had problems, South Side and Southwest Virginia, are actually starting to gain again. Richmond's doing pretty well. Fredericksburg's doing well, the Charlottesville area, but we're losing people as a state. The reason we're losing people as a state, I'm sorry, one more illustration of this. United Airlines does this study every year of where people are moving in the country. And you see that people are leaving the Northeast, they're leaving the high cost, workers' paradise in California, the nearly bankrupt Illinois, and they're moving to the Southeast, to rural areas, to the Mountain West. The reason a lot of these people are leaving is because Virginia's economy is in the doldrums. You always think of Virginia's economy as doing pretty well, but when you again look at it statistically, this is a chart Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond put it together that shows the trend line. So Virginia is the light blue line, the U.S. average is the darker blue line, and you see that when the economy goes into recession, Virginia doesn't go down as much as everybody else. This is, of course, the 2008 recession. This is COVID. But when you come out of these recessions, we're bumping along not nearly as well as even the U.S. average. That's right. We're below average in Virginia. This puts it a little bit more graphically. This is GDP growth. You see again all the way back to 2014. The red is the U.S. average. Virginia is the blue. Every year, except when we hit the COVID recession, Virginia is trailing the U.S. average. We haven't even recovered all the jobs in Virginia that we lost during COVID. We're down 119,000 jobs. So this is again the trend line for Virginia. We're getting better. But when you look at other states, you look at Florida, Arizona, South Carolina, Tennessee, they're all back. And actually, this is through December of 2021, so it's a few months old. But again, you look at this is the U.S. average, and the U.S. is now back above where we were in COVID. North Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, all above where they were pre-COVID. Virginia just hasn't gotten back yet. Look at us regionally, the change in employment since right before COVID began. And it's all across the state, with the exception of the Plattsburgh and the Winchester region. You see, and this is not by city, this is metro area. So Hampshire is referred to as the Virginia Beach metro area. One of the largest losses in the state of employment compared what it is now compared to the pre-COVID times. And what I'm here to talk about a little bit is the reason we haven't recovered well, because we don't have sites for business to go to. As a state, we have made a number of mistakes. We've done a lot of things well. And this is not to be a partisan statement or condemn any one governor or legislature. We've done a lot of things well. But one thing we have not done well is we've not invested in sites for where companies can go. This is a map. One of them was professionally done. The other one is Chris Lloyd done. That's why it's not nearly as good. But if you look at where capital intensive investment has been occurring, you have these waves in the economy of industrial growth. And really in starting in the late 80s through the 90s into the 2000s, you have two waves, an aerospace wave and an automotive investment wave in this country, where either new investments were coming in from overseas, or a lot of the factories out of the Midwest and the Northeast were moving. And you look at where automobile industry started to cluster, and you look at where the aerospace used to cluster, and what stands out there? Not a one in Virginia, except for a little bit of expansion at the Baldwin Heavy Trucks facility out of Dublin, Virginia. You look at the wave that's now starting with regards to EV manufacturing and batteries, and where those facilities are clustering. That's the new wave as we transition to electric vehicles, although I will drive my gas-powered 2005 Honda Accord until the wheels fall off. And it's sitting in the parking lot right now at 351,537 miles on it. So, and I'll be buried in that bad boy. But most people will switch to electric vehicles. Look at where the battery plants and the automobile plants are going. Look at this again. It's following that exact pattern. You've got Michigan, of course, which is still strong. In the normal car market, internal combustion engine, and then the Southeast, kind of this lower Midwest cluster. What's happening? Not a one in Virginia. And again, it's because we don't have sites. What's happening in the Virginia Economic Development Partnership is seeing what they refer to as mega projects. And so what they get is these requests for information from various site consultants, corporations looking to locate projects around the country. And Virginia is the Virginia Economic Development Partnership receive those. They work with their partners, whether it's the Hampshire Alliance, the Greater Richmond Partnership in the Richmond area, or other counterparts around the state to respond to those. And we would usually get, these are billion-dollar projects with 1,000 jobs. Past few years, we get a couple a year. This year, VDP's already received 25 projects. And guess how many we've won in that period? And it was Lego. And that's a great project. I love Legos. $1.7 billion investment, over 1,000 jobs. But it's not an electric vehicle. It's not an airplane. It's not a satellite. It's not a battery plant. So Lego's a great project and a wonderful accomplishment for the state. And Lego was the direct result of investment that Chesapeake County made. That project is going to the Meadowville Industrial Park. And Meadowville was something that Chesapeake County, they acquired that land in the late 80s and early 90s. And they invested in it. They put in the utilities. They put in the roads. They put the zoning in place. And it's now full. That was the result of a 25-year vision by Chesapeake County to make that happen. And now Lego really is Lego. And then there's just an announcement that Governor Young made a couple weeks ago for Freshly, which is the indoor greenhouse facility, $300 million to grow strawberries, vertical farming in Chesapeake County. So Virginia's won one project out of all these. And again, it's because we don't have many sites ready to go. So thankfully, Virginia started to recognize this. We realized actually a couple of years ago, we didn't even have an inventory of what sites existed in the Commonwealth, of where you could put economic development if you got these requests for information. So the General Assembly funded about $3 million to the Virginia Economic Development Partnership to categorize what sites we have around the Commonwealth. And just so you understand, so tier 1 and 2 It means the higher the number, the more prepared or shovel ready a site is. So tier 1 or tier 2 means we've identified a piece of land that might possibly someday be open for economic development or commercial development purposes. Tier 3 means you may have some roads to it, some utilities are planned. Tier 4 or 5 means it's pretty ready to go. This is the map that they produced, and you look at where we have ready to go sites in Virginia. We've got one in Danville, one in Emporia, one in Sussex County. This is the Meadowville tract, Meadowville and White Oak tracts in the Richmond area. You've got one north of Charlottesville. Good luck developing in Albemarle County. But you look at where else we have ready to go sites. There aren't many. We've got a few identified here in the population centers, but they weren't ready to go. And so as this wave that's coming through the country right now of looking to make these billion-dollar plus investments, these projects are going to create thousands of jobs. Virginia heretofore just hasn't had many sites to show to folks. And it really shows up, this is now about a year old, it really shows up in the statistics of how we rank against our competitor states. And you look at where these projects are going. Number 1, Georgia. And again, this is 2 years old because since this chart was put together, Georgia, you see, has had 184 projects, 25,000 jobs, $8 billion worth of investment. This doesn't include the Rivian site or the site where Hyundai just announced that they're going to Savannah, Georgia, with 8,000 people, with spin-off jobs of probably 15,000. Any of you have been to Savannah, it's a wonderful, beautiful place. I represent Gulfstream. It's just down there a couple weeks ago. Gulfstream has 15,000 employees in the Savannah area. Where you're going to fit another 23,000 people in the Savannah area, I don't know. But for some reason, Hyundai thought that was a great place to go because they had several thousand acres right next to the port that was ready to go on Interstate 95, on a site that had utilities and roads that were ready to be built. North Carolina, this site, you see is number 3. This doesn't include the new investments by Toyota, which were just made in North Carolina. Toyota is going to build their battery production facility. VinFast, which is a Vietnamese electric vehicle charging facility located near Greensboro. It doesn't include the new semiconductor plant that's going into the Chatham-Siler mega site. North Carolina has just been kicking Virginia's butt in economic development. And just to put it in perspective, what the states have been spending, Georgia bought the site 2 years ago where Hyundai is going to go. Georgia and the Georgia Port Authority spent $100 million to buy that site and then start to develop it. North Carolina, for the site, Toyota is going to go into the 2021 General Assembly session. North Carolina spent $350 million on one site to get ready. And now they're undertaking a study in order to identify other sites. South Carolina, of course, is one. You look at the investments near the port in Charleston for Volvo or Mercedes-Benz. There, where the state and the counties pump tens of billions of dollars into rail infrastructure, road infrastructure, utility infrastructure, buying land for industrial development. Tennessee, just one, of course, the West Memphis mega site, which is out I-40 to the east. Actually, it's not West Memphis, it's just the Memphis mega site. It's to the east of Memphis. What's actually the best thing about that is it's one exit away from the Tina Turner Museum in Nutbush, Tennessee, which I think is much cooler than the Ford battery plant, but which is an absolutely fabulous museum. But Tennessee had spent 20 years assembling about several thousand acres and putting utilities there, building the interstate interchange, putting the rail in, putting the gas in, and that attracted Ford to that site. Mississippi, Florida, Kentucky, all of them are putting in a lot of money into industrial development. And here's Virginia bumping along the bottom with not even, we're down there with West Virginia and Maryland. That's not good company for Virginia to have. You then look at, again, this point that I made earlier. Despite the increase in the number of projects, Virginia's had very few wins. So again, you look at where a lot of these are the large projects that are going. Again, since 2015, 121 projects have occurred in the Southeast, $24 billion of capital investment, 57,000 jobs. Virginia won One was a 200-acre site that was for the glove manufacturing facility out in Southwest Virginia, and then Lego. And look at North Carolina. North Carolina's won 16 of these projects. That's because they had sites ready to go in North Carolina. This is, again, the BDP has looked at it, some of the specific projects we've missed out on. Project Aurora, these are some of the code names, but it's also some of them are in the semiconductor plants. Project K2 is the Intel facility that ended up in Columbus, Ohio. And I was just, like I said, it was just in Columbus last week, and they are so excited about what that's made. Columbus is already a market that's on fire. Columbus is already doing really, really well. And now Intel is going to come there and put 20,000 jobs. And just think about what that means for the supply chain, other the spin-off benefits for that region. Even places like I was in Albany, New York, they just announced, of course, Intel is going to spend $100 billion. $100 billion just outside along the thruway. Well, actually, it's a little closer to Syracuse than it is to Albany. For a lot of the assets, the research assets are in Albany. Virginia lost out on that opportunity. And the reason Virginia lost out, and specifically Project K2, we lost out because we didn't have a site for credit. There's actually a site in Chesapeake Alliance that was being considered for that site. Because the roads weren't there, utilities weren't there, it wasn't even zoned properly yet. Virginia lost out. Intel just said, we have this before the CHIPS Act, this federal legislation to spur investments in economic development passed. They just said, we need to move so fast to meet the chip demand in this country. We can't wait for 2 years for the zoning process, utilities and all to be put into place in order for this to happen. They needed to move quickly. And so they went places that were ready and prepared. Interestingly, what you're also seeing is you don't just need sites with utilities and everything in the rail there. You're seeing a lot of companies saying, not only do we want all of that, but we also want to make sure that renewable energy is available, either on site or very close there too. That was an essential element for the Lego project in Chesapeake County. They're going to build about a 300-acre solar field located next to their site. And again, a lot of these projects are saying we want to have access to renewable energy because it's what their customers are demanding. So when you're thinking about where you're going to put industrial locations, it's not just about the site itself, it's about also providing that renewable energy, which is so important. And the reason why Virginia, in particular this city, has an incredible opportunity is not just because of all those statistics I talked about before, about this wave of development that's occurring in this country, and we need to be prepared. But we've also got Eastern North Carolina, which realizes we are their port. I took this picture as out my window as I was leaving Wilmington, North Carolina a week and a half ago. That's the port of Wilmington. Not to make fun of North Carolina, but really? That's their port? I mean, really? And so when North Carolina really thinks about it, a lot of what's driving the growth in North Carolina is they realize that the Port of Hampton Roads and the Port of Virginia is their port. And so they're building the road to connect to it. I think y'all are all aware of Interstate 87, which has already started to be signed in North Carolina. And the importance of linking that up to this area is absolutely vital and important. So, the point I really want to leave with is, again, it's not just also about sites, but it's also some other aspects. And this is where I think this group can particularly be effective. Number one, speed to market and regulatory reform and streamlining. Making sure that companies, when they come here, that they know they can get through the permitting process very quickly. One example I'll walk through there is we do everything for Performance Food Group, which of course is now the second largest food service company in the country. They're building a warehouse in Memphis, Tennessee, $50 million warehouse. They've been told by their construction contractor to expect construction cost inflation of 1% per week. So if their permits, their grading permit or their erosion control permit is delayed 6 weeks, that's a $3 million cost to them. That overcomes any incentive, any other benefits that the state or the city or the county could show up. So what are you as business leaders doing to work with City Hall to make sure that their permit writers ready, that the economic development process go to the top of the pile, make sure that their consultants and engineers and advisors ready to go to make sure that permits move through the system very, very quickly. The state is starting to tackle that issue. Governor Youngkin just appointed regulatory reforms are Andrew Wheeler, who's trying to streamline the DEQ permitting process, public permitting process at the state level. and it's going to be very important for the city to also come along with this. Number two, workforce. The importance of making sure you've identified the workforce, and more importantly, that the people who provide training in this market and across the state are listening to the needs of business. We have Virginia does a terrible job of this. Virginia has, the General Assembly has something called the JLARC, Joint Legislative Audit Review Commission, which is kind of the watchdog group for the legislature. And they'll research topics of interest. Years ago, they looked at the career technical education system in Virginia. And I'll admit, some improvements have been made since the study was done. What they did is they looked at career technical education, and they found that they polled all of Virginia's high schools, and they found that 67 Virginia high schools have training in nursing and healthcare, which is great because what's that, a sixth U.S. economy? They found that 247 Virginia high schools had training in fashion design. Last time Virginia was fashionable was 1760s when we wore buckles on our shoes and trying to wear hats. And they just realized that it's two ships passing in the night. That nobody in the education system is talking to this business community. Southwest Virginia, through a Go Virginia grant, also looked at a similar topic. And they polled businesses on what credentials and certifications are important to you. And they found that 2/3 of those credentials and certifications are important to business. Not a single high school or community college system in Southwest Virginia provided. They then looked at what certifications were being provided by the high schools and the colleges, and they found that 2/3 of certifications didn't have a single business that was hiring in those certifications. Again, two ships just passing. So you as business leaders need to make sure you're in the community colleges, you're in the K-12 system, making sure that the curriculum is what is responsive to you and the industries of the future, not just teaching people, whatever's cool or whatever kids want to do at the time. Because otherwise the programs just continue on. You need to be responsive to business. Tax policy. And I'm going to go ahead and I said I was going to stay, but maybe after this one, I might have to run out on the rim because I'm going to pull out the grenade and pull the pin out. Virginia has a tax system built for the 19th century. And particularly because we tax, unlike a lot of other states, we tax machinery and tools. The city is one of those. A lot of Virginia Beach, as y'all know, has gotten rid of the machinery and tools tax, and RICO has started to undo it. And I'm not saying that money that this city gets out of machinery and tools tax isn't important. And I know the fiscal issues all of Virginia's cities and counties are constrained by, and it's a significant source of revenue for this city. But when you have companies that are making $1 billion, $2 billion, $3 billion capital investments, and that's the way industry is going, large capital investments, not as many jobs. And then the way you thank them every year is with a monster tax bill. Where are they going to go? Are they going to come here? Or are they going to go to Iowa, where they don't pay personal property tax? Or are they going to go to North Carolina, where they can get or South Carolina, where they can get a property tax abatement on that? Dealing with machinery and tools tax at the local level through some sort of tax reform has to be done to recognize the changes that are going on in Virginia's economy. Need to be worked at the state issue that's got to be addressed because there's got to be some sort of revenue sharing between the state and local county. And of course, the local counties say car tax too. Can we trust Richmond? Can we trust Richmond? Not to. Because as long as Virginia communities keep taxing machinery and tools and tangible personal property, it is going to be a disincentive to large capital investments. And no one put me up to that. I've been saying that for a long time, and I've been beating the drum. I've met with BDP staff. We're meeting with the governor in a couple of weeks to go through that. It's not reforming corporate income tax in Virginia. North Carolina is trying to get the corporate income tax to zero. Iowa's doing the same. Of course, a number of states are already there. That doesn't do a whole lot to spur new business growth in the Commonwealth. Limiting the machinery and tools tax is going to have an absolutely significant benefit. Making sure that the city is developing water and sewer to develop the huge loads that come with these projects. Make sure your perspective and planning is very important. We've got to do something regarding the utility infrastructure in this state. A lot of other states allow the power company and the gas company to go out and build infrastructure to sites, even though there's not an identified customer. Virginia doesn't allow that because they're afraid that that's going to raise rates. Now, there are some good reasons for that. You do not want Dominion to go out and spend $1 billion in power infrastructure on a wing and a prayer. So you need to have some checks and balances in the system, or Virginia Natural Gas or Columbia to go out and build, $50 million worth of pipes and hope that something comes. But we need a lot of other states, Tennessee, South Carolina, North Carolina, have all figured out a much better balance than Virginia has. So we need to make sure that we're willing to allow some of that to be captured in the rate base so that we can make these investments for the future. future. And finally, I think it's the importance of this region to forge political alliances with Richmond, Northern Virginia, and Shenandoah Valley to get investments in the port development and utility development in this part of the state. Savannah and Charleston figured that out. Savannah and Atlanta built this political alliance. They realized that the number of votes in the Georgia legislature for Savannah was minuscule compared to the votes in Atlanta. And they essentially sold themselves that we're the front door of the economic engine for Atlanta. Charleston did the same thing with the upstate, with the Greenville-Spartanburg area, all automobile manufacturing that's happening here. Those kind of alliances, we're already starting to see some of it with the RDA 757 initiative and other things, talk about the mega region concept, but making sure that this region reaches out and sees the other parts of the state as allies in economic development and not competitors in economic development. So we make sure we don't have that out migration and other depressive economic trends that I talked about earlier. You have to take any questions.
Can I ask you to speak on something? So one of the things, the biggest thing, it's still the elephant in the room, but it's not as big as it was the Williams Farm. Can you explain to this group, I guess, like they know where the Williams Farm is, but you can explain to them as it relates to 87, what that would mean to Chesapeake? Sure. I mean, just a job and opportunity. And these are all business people and what it would mean to them.
Yeah.
The Williams Farm.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's specifically. All of that was to say this, you should be doing this with the Williams track. I should have made that point crystal clear, but thank you, David. I mean, if you go back to that map that I had here. Let me get you back. I got it. Williams tract is that piece of property right there. And you look at where Virginia's got land to go. Emporia's a great site. Danville's a great site. I'm not knocking them. But where are you going to pull workforce from for these sites? Hyundai, this was the #2 site for Hyundai. But they realized you draw an hour drive around Danville, you only get maybe 50,000 workers in that region. Draw an hour drive around this. You might pick up some of the southern suburbs of Richmond and some of the outer suburbs of Raleigh, maybe get 100,000 people. Draw an hour around this, you get a lot of workers. You draw an hour drive around Fredericksburg, you get to go 5 miles because traffic's so bad. You're going to look at where Virginia is best positioned. A market that's close to the port, has the possibility for infrastructure, that has workers around it. That's the magic 3 things that any company is looking for. That is the best site that Virginia has. If we're going to reverse some of those trends regarding out-migration, we're going to reverse the trends regarding economic slump in Virginia, that is the best site. And as I noted with Chesterfield, it's not something that happens overnight. It requires the business community and the city government working together hand in hand for decades to make that happen. We'll have an incredible opportunity, and then combined with all that regulatory reform and the tax reform and other things, and I think this is the state do. Again, that is probably the best site that Virginia has for great industrial.
I agree. That is probably one of the best sites in Virginia. And to get that site developed, there's a couple options we're going to have to overcome. One of the big one is Richmond, Virginia. Because if you don't get DEQ or the Wetlands Commission and the Corps of Engineers on board with it, that site will never be developed.
Yep. You're absolutely correct. And that's why I mentioned that the governor has appointed this regulatory reform czar, David Wheeler, to really take a look at that. Interestingly, in fact, I just sent it to the governor's policy office and economic development yesterday. South Carolina, Governor McMaster did this. The Governor Whitmer in Michigan a few weeks ago issued an executive order mandating that the permitting process be streamlined. That's what forward-looking governors and forward-looking, and that's Governor Whitmer's a Democrat, and McMaster's is almost as far to the right as you get in South Carolina. And both of them realized that regulatory reform, permit reform, streamlining all is absolutely essential. Because you're right, you think about the challenges that a South Carolina site has. I mean, half the state's marshal, and they've been able to overcome that because of the dedicated commitment. Yes, ma'am.
I just recently talked about mega regions, kind of taxing issues. What's your opinion about that? Like, do you see us being positioned to do that?
Sure. The value of the mega region, from my view, is that, I mean, you look at Richmond and Hampton Roads separately. I mean, Hampton Roads, I think, is the 47th largest market in the country, or the 37th, and Richmond's like the 47th largest metro in the country. You combine them too, and I'm not saying truly combine them, I'm not talking regional government here or anything like that, but if you market them together, you're some of the 17th largest metro area in America. And the opportunity that you can have from showing that you have a broad, diverse, skilled workforce in a large metro area is very attractive to companies that are looking for sites. So again, I think the mega region concept, and then, other leadership, let's invest in broadband, let's invest in interstate highways. We need to complete 64 between here and Richmond. Thankfully, the pieces are falling into place for that. I think it's more of a political and marketing tool than anything. And if you can use that to, again, augment the number of people who are looking at you, because you have a bigger workforce, more assets, more combined unity, then that's going to get the attention of corporate decision makers. Yes,
Is there a reason why there's so few sites in the central and western part of the state where there's so much open land?
Yeah, a lot of it is lack of utilities, particularly gas. A lot of it is lack of rail. I mean, you think about where the rail networks go. I mean, it comes out of Richmond 460 to the coal fields. You've got the line that goes to Charlottesville and up, so you don't have a lot of rail in that area. A lot of these sites are developed in partnership with local government, and a lot of those local governments are very fiscally challenged. You also, obviously, once you start to get to 29 and 81, you have topography challenges. Try to find 100, 200 acres of flat land, particularly when you get out here to find it. Those are most of the reasons. Yes, sir.
We're several of the people in here, myself included, have projects that we're looking to develop residentially and mixed use, in that corridor, that Dominion corridor. And I tell you, one of the biggest problems we're facing is, and you did a wonderful job of just showing how critically important it is for us to attract, a mega site, with these jobs. But the citizenry down in this area are so opposed to any kind of growth whatsoever, and they just come out in droves and hammer our planning commission and city council. We need desperately to have some of this type of material that we can arm ourselves with. These are the kind of presentations. For instance, this would be a great presentation for a city council meeting, and to have some town hall meetings where people could come in and just understand how we're falling behind. People that live in this area are concerned about their children graduating from high school. And if the jobs are not here,
Those
they're
children,
leaving town.
they're going to go to Salt Lake, they're going to go to Austin, they're just not going to be here. So that's the trend we already have.
So how, I think one of the things, Dave, we should really focus on is how can we equip ourselves with this information, and how can we bring, people like yourself in front of our city council and do these types of presentations. You may already have done it. I'm not aware of it, but it's critically important. I mean, we don't have a single council person here today to hear this, and theirs are the most important years for this fall.
They are, I think, David's vision for this was to make sure this group was energized about it first, because they need to hear from you. The naysayers are always going to be there, no matter what the project is. The Richmond paper just the other day had a big story about how all these residents are opposed to sheets coming in here now. I mean, it's just, there's always going to be people that are always opposed to it. They're not just NIMBYs, they're bananas. Buildings are nothing anywhere near anything. And truly bananas sometimes, but what they need to hear from people that have a vested interest in this community and see it going forward, bigger opportunities for their children, grandchildren, making sure this doesn't become an economic cul-de-sac. And Virginia's got these challenges. We don't change our patterns, those trend lines.
What's the view?
David, I don't want to take too much.
No,
time.
no.
Are you sure? I don't want to monopolize.
Chris, you can take the whole meeting.
Okay.
I have a few things I can do. This is important. I mean, again, we can talk about jobs and creation of jobs, because we need to talk about these things. And I don't think people realize that these can keep all of our kids here, whether they have a college education or not, one way or the other. There would be plenty of jobs and plenty of people. This is big for us.
I'm sorry.
And that's what this group needs to focus on, how to get this in front of, we can get in front of city council, that's gonna be the goal. We also need to think about how do we get in front of citizens as well as a business group. Yes, I love to keep going.
Please go ahead. Yes.
Well, yeah, I heard you speak of Interstate 87, and it sounds, from everything that I've heard, most of the push is coming from North Carolina, not so much from Virginia. And I'm not sure where that stands. You may know better than I.
A little bit. I talked to our folks we have a Raleigh office, and I think North Carolina realizes for that part of the region, that part of the state to succeed, they need Interstate 87. They also realize that they don't have port assets and other things. So yeah, I mean, there's some concern in the Richmond leadership and with others that, hey, if we build this interstate, that it's just going to allow us to open up North Carolina. I'm a believer in the rising tide lifts all boats. And you look at another bi-state region, which is struggling with that, but is also starting to figure it out. And that's, the area around Savannah. Remember, Savannah smack up against the South Carolina border. And, you got Jasper County and some of those other counties, just when you go north on 95, they've started to realize, hey, we need to cooperate more on utilities and other things because Savannah's starting to fill out. Y'all have a slightly different opportunity. You've got something to fill and then go to North Carolina. And just think about all the opportunities that be created from expanding the size of the.
Well, I think you also see it in the Greenville, Charlotte area as well.
Absolutely.
And I was wondering, I didn't think Richmond really felt like it was a benefit to the state.
I don't think they do yet, but I think that they need to be educated. Really. Yes, sir.
Just to expand on that just a little bit, the number one question I have, and I'm very familiar with Frank Williams' site, is the access to it, the interstate to it. There's one way in and one way out. And, I don't know what big company's gonna want that. I have been around long enough to see 17 closed down a few times over the years, whether it was a dismal swamp fire or a bad accident or something of that nature. So are we looking at building interstates on Virginia side as well to bring it in, or?
That's the whole concept of
Yeah.
87, is to cross the line and, come up with 17 corridors, I understand it. Makes it max, so. But I think, Virginia had invested a lot in that so far. But yeah, I mean, if you don't have a lot of these sites, when I talk about those projects in other states, if you don't have a site on a interstate shield, 17 is great. It's a nice 4-lane road. But if it's not that red, white, blue shield, companies aren't going to look at it.
The interstate's still, 15, 17 miles from there? So, that's a good little run for a truck driver.
Yeah, yes, sir. Representation. I've been in the region here for the last 56 years. I need to observe everything, the growth, etc. We talk about education, workforce. One thing that people have not really mentioned is that this region, Wolverhampton Road, 1.6 million population, has a universal healthcare. Everyone is covered here when it comes to healthcare. We have a clinic that accepts everyone from the whole region that are uninsured, underinsured, the homeless, all the veterans. They have also their dental care thing are all covered, etc. So that's one thing we can promote here in this region, that we are a leader when it comes to healthcare.
Absolutely. And I'll add, I agree with that completely. That is one of those quality of life factors that a lot of our clients look at as they're going through their site search. 2 more that I'll put on the list, Bill and I were talking about this a minute ago, is affordable housing. And 2 years ago, I never had a client ask where my people are going to live. Now it's one of the top questions they ask. Is where is affordable workforce housing from workforce? The next one is childcare. Healthcare, childcare, affordable housing, those factors, again, nobody cared about here now, but it wasn't one of those site selection factors until just a few years ago. And now, so you can talk about what you're doing to promote affordable workforce housing, what you can do to promote affordable and reliable childcare, what you can do to promote, universal coverage of healthcare, what the system is. Those are going to be things that distinguish this region.
Someone mentioned something quickly. I wish Kevin Cosgrove was here. Kevin Cosgrove, I think everybody knows, is on the Economic Development Authority that is negotiating with the Williams Farm to purchase the property. So hopefully the goal is, and that's why this is becoming a big deal, the goal is to try to get this property purchased by the beginning of the year. It is roughly $100 million, I think, to run utilities from wherever it stops all the way to the Williams Farm, which is something that the city is going to put up something finally, but I think they're looking for about 2/3 of that from the state to do that, which seems like a small amount of money. You look at these other states and what they're putting in and what we're not putting in. And then I need to ask you, so the goal is, the process is still probably 2 years from January 1st. If it gets zoned, which there will be pushback from the citizens on zoning for this project, okay? So that's why our group needs to be there, but it's still about 2 years away. But you brought up something very interesting about the machinery and tools tax. So finally, we get the utilities run down there. We finally get a place to have a mega site. And then we're going to lose what percentage of are we going to lose because of that tax, right? I mean, and you would think the city of Chesapeake, if they could grab that tax over the first couple of years, they could pay for this whole thing. Just imagine how, but I wonder, what's your comment on that? Once we get there, finally, and we have a mega site approved and we have utilities run, what is our chance of getting?
Right. I mean, there are ways to mitigate it in the short term. I mean, what Chesapeake has done and other communities have done is they offer, a partial rebate. We can't call it rebate. You can make a grant approximating the increase in machinery and tools tax that you do on a case-by-case basis. The thing is, that's negotiable. Remember, I call myself a site selector, but at the end of the day, I'm in the site elimination business. And, I've got 12,500 communities across America who all think they're the perfect home for my project. And I'm doing a lot of internet research or just research generally on sites. And I may not know about, well, if I ask the right question, I can get part of that negotiated. Whereas in my Excel spreadsheet, when I've got a tab that says, do I have a machinery and tools tax or equipment tax in a community? And I've got a Y next to any Virginia locality and an N next to a lot of other localities. It's going to be real easy for me to hit delete on that Virginia side. And again, I know I'm dropping a grenade and pulling the pin on that one, but and it's not to say that that's not an important source of revenue for many Virginia communities. But again, the trend in this country is increasing investment in capital investment, increasing increasing automation. If we have a tax system that penalizes that, it is going to put Virginia in this space. Even if you can mitigate it in the short term. Again, when we run financial models for our clients, we run a 10, 20, 30-year financial model. You're lucky you have 5 to 10 years abatement, for a Virginia project. When they start running the out years, they compare what Virginia does to a Missouri or to an Iowa or other states that don't tax this heavily.
Any other questions?
Just real quick, switching gears slightly, Chris, when you came in and when I was with the Virginia Beach Chamber, you talked about data centers.
Yes.
I know when the transatlantic lines came in, Cox helped and a lot of other ISPs are interconnected with them like we are, but we didn't really see that data center growth. I know this group is kind of looking at that as also something as a potential for Chesapeake. What do you see as the opportunities for that?
Sure. What I see, and got some client conferences here. So one, the cables are very, very important. But what's also important and I'm getting way out over my skis regarding technical. I took 3 science classes at William Mary, and that was it. And ran screaming from those. 2 of them were geology. So what my understanding is, it's not just the cables, but the cables linked to nodes. And you have to then the nodes are what feed in the data centers. There's a big node in Richmond. And then of course there's the big node in Northern Virginia. And you really need to be, heretofore it always had to be, you had to be within 10 to 20 miles of those nodes to see a lot of data center growth. My understanding is the technology is now getting to the point where you can extend 50, 60, 100 miles from those nodes and still have the latency and whatever is necessary to have a reliable network. What we're hearing, not only from clients, but also from the rumor mill, is you are about to see in the next year, well, one, it's becoming incredibly hard to build data centers up here. Residents are fighting it. Land is now $3 million an acre in Ashburn to build a data center. And nobody wants to, it's just the development challenges are possible. What you're gonna start to see is those nodes migrating down this corridor. And it's happening. I think in the next year, you're gonna see tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars of investment flowing into data centers on this corridor. And then what you need to figure out is, well, then, is the technology improves, can you make this Richmond node at the QTS facility out here near the airport? Can you figure out a way that you can extend it down this way? But the technology is starting to finally get there, that it can happen. In order to make it happen, Virginia has an effective incentive tool, which is the sales use tax exemption on data centers, which expires in 2035, which sounds like a long way off. But if you're making an investment now, you want to be thinking about what you're going to be investing through 2050. We need to extend it. Also, local governments need to, we've seen a number of those communities along the 95 corridor adopt an alternative. The General Assembly allowed localities to adopt an alternative taxation scheme for data centers, where data centers are not taxed as normal tangible personal property, they're taxed at a different rate. So like, the normal rate's usually $4 a hundred, tax data centers are about 25 a hundred. But you think on an investment of $10 billion, that's still a lot of money coming in for the school system and all. So again, I think the technology is getting there, then you need to make sure the tax policies and other things align to make sure, again, that growth, which I am convinced is starting to come down this corridor, also starting to work its way down.
Anything else?
Chris, just one question, just
Last question.
different perspective. With all the turmoil in Europe, do you see more European industry trying to migrate to other locales in other countries like the United States?
Great question. Absolutely, yes. I would say we do a lot of international work. Companies that are looking at the US, we don't represent companies overseas, but we represent international companies with only investments in the US. And I would say, particularly in the last 3 months, not just the turmoil, but the real turmoil that's scaring them is energy prices. You look at natural gas in Germany or France right now, it's 5 times what it is here. Electricity is 5 to 7 times what it is here. And so we're seeing a lot of the European manufacturers starting to call and saying, not only we need to get away from Europe because of energy prices, but one, again, it's political, at least, yeah, we're screwed up in this country, but everybody else is even more screwed up than we are. You still have the rule of law, you still have, even with interest rates rising, still money is relatively cheap. You still have land available, you still have the resources to make it happen. So yeah, there's a lot of European companies. In fact, one of my colleagues is right now in Germany talking to a number of companies. It's something we've never done before. And yes, those companies are actively looking at this. So not only do you have the growth of the industries I talked about earlier, but you got a lot of people saying we can't afford to manufacture in Europe anymore. So we're going to come to the safest, best market around, and that's the United States.
Okay, Chris, thank you for such a great presentation. Small token of our appreciation for coming down, so I really appreciate that. So, you're more than welcome to stay. I don't think we have any secrets here today that we're gonna spill.